So a few days ago, I was. So a few days ago, I received news that I am now a doctor. So I thought that I would record a video and share some of my thoughts about that. I have written notes and I've already spilt a little bit of water on it, so we're off to a great start. First of all, what was my doctorate in? Um, I have the title here because I can never remember it. It was Resource Estimation and Routing of Two-Qubit Entanglement for Distributed Quantum Computing. So essentially it was about quantum computer science. And interestingly, I've, uh, I've done this doctorate and I'm getting out of quantum computer science. So the first question that I have written here is, how does that feel? I mean, yeah, doesn't feel awesome, but that's life, right? Sometimes you get stuck into something and you decide, hey, it's not for you. And so I suppose the more interesting question is, well, why wasn't it for you? And I have a few different answers about that. There's one supernatural answer and there's two natural answers. And so I'll start with the supernatural answer because that sounds a lot more interesting, right? I I decided to get out of quantum computer science because I don't feel that it's what God is calling me to be doing. Now, I converted to the Catholic faith around the same time that I was starting my doctorate. So it makes sense that my impression of what God wants me to be doing would change over that time period, right? I was a very different person when I started out the doctorate, and I grew in more ways than one. You know, throughout my program, I had the impression that okay, I had been given some talents and some gifts, and I was applying them wrong, applying them incorrectly in some way. You know, like I was a hammer trying to be used as a screwdriver or something like that. And so that ultimately contributed to this feeling of dissatisfaction, this feeling like, hey, maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and that leads somewhat into the natural reasons, right? The first natural reason why I'm getting out of it is I simply didn't enjoy it. Um, I I wasn't excited about uh, quantum computer science in the way that other people are excited about quantum computer science, and that's okay, you know. And there's another question that ties into that. We'll get into this a little bit later, but this question of, well, do you think quantum computer science is useful? Is that why you? It's like, okay, St. Thomas says that all created things are good. There's no bad things, there are only bad uses of things. So the fact that quantum computer science exists as a field, as a scientific endeavor, that in and of itself is good, right? So that's not to disparage any people out there who are working on this problem. It's just that I didn't feel satisfied working on it. It's not what fundamentally interested me. What interests me uh, is trying to make myself helpful. And when you're talking about a scientific discipline that's very abstract and very far removed in some sense from what is useful in day-to-day life, yeah, you're gonna have some friction there. It's like there are brilliant mathematicians out there who are working on like the Collatz conjecture, or the twin prime conjecture, or all of these abstract things that really have no bearing on anybody's lives, but are nevertheless beautiful and worth working on. There's a real adventure in the theoretical sciences, and for those people who are called to that, power to them. But that is not me. And another reason why that's not me is, again, being totally honest. This is another natural reason. I am simply not smart enough to be a great quantum computer scientist. Now, it's possible that I am a good quantum computer scientist. It's possible that with time and effort and energy, I could have become a better quantum computer scientist. But, I think a lot of people are going to think that I'm putting myself down here, that I'm being unjust or unfair because it's like, oh, you've got a doctorate now and you're calling yourself a dummy. It's like, no, I'm not calling myself a dummy. I've been gifted with some amount of natural intelligence, yes, but everybody has their limits. Everybody has their walls that they hit, right? The world is an extraordinarily complex place, and everybody, doesn't matter who you are, you could have an IQ of 170, 190, 200 plus IQ. There are still going to be things in the world that you don't understand, that you can't fathom. So for me to say that, yes, most of quantum computer science is beyond me, that's not me putting myself down. That's just me stating a matter of fact, right? I don't think anybody would be offended if I said I'm not Michael Jordan, right? I'm not 7 feet tall. I don't slam dunk basketballs. But I think part of the reason why we get so bothered by talking about intelligence is because the modern world has really conflated intelligence with self worth. And that's just not true. Uh, you know, we 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 think of intelligent people as being very respectable, and why should they be? A person with a high IQ, really, that wasn't in their control. Our culture has forgotten how to praise virtue, and virtue is one of those things that more often than not is invisible, right? You don't have statues of people who uh, got out of bed early in the morning when they didn't want to. You don't have statues of people who took care of their elderly, infirmed relatives without any thanks or uh, without any public consolation. I'm looking for the word, and the word is escaping me. So I would say that even the piece of paper that I earned, this doctorate, is far less consequential to me than the areas of my life where I was able to improve my character. What I learned from my doctorate that was really important, that I really treasure, and that I really wouldn't have been able to get any other way, was this kind of humility, right? When you encounter people who are much, much more intelligent than you are and who are able to do amazing things, the things that you never could. To look at other people like that and to glorify God and say, like, okay, I am what I am, and that's good. That's okay. God made each and every one of us, from the lowliest to the presidents of the world. He made all of us for some beautiful, mysterious reason, and that's really worth considering. So, anyways, I've talked for some time about me. But why don't I talk about quantum computing more broadly? Where do I think quantum computing is going? That really depends on what part of quantum computing that you're talking about. As somebody who can now have a qualified opinion on this, I think the theorists are going to be just fine, right? You're going to have your Scott Aronsons and your Craig Gidneys. You're going to have people that are doing really interesting and remarkable theoretical work. They're always going to have a payroll, right? Where the answer starts to change is the so-called quantum industry. I think it's safe to say that all quantum industry, all independent quantum industry, without exception, is going to fail. And so what do I mean by independent? I'm talking about groups that, are like IonQ and Psi Quantum, all of these quantum startups, you know, uh, that don't have any other, their main goal is to build a working quantum computer, and that's why they exist, a working scalable quantum computer. And so this is different from other organizations like Google and Microsoft and IBM, who are doing other stuff, and quantum computing is just like a little toy project on the side, right? So why do I think that these big independent startups are going to fail? Well, I think it comes down to this thing that I've been calling the Panama problem. So the Panama Canal was one of the most influential waterways in all of the world, right? It connects the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, and it goes through about 50 miles of just really dense tropical jungle. To build this thing was one of the most expensive engineering projects in the entire world, not just in terms of dollar cost, but also in terms of human lives. Something like the number that I have written here is 27,600 approximately people died from injuries and disease to build the Panama Canal. And not only not only did people lose their lives, but there was also a lot of financial ruin, right? The French started this project. It was private interests, and they bankrupted themselves. It was eventually the Americans who finished the project, the American military specifically. Teddy Roosevelt came in and essentially annexed the Panama Canal, essentially annexed Panama, but that's a story for another time, right? So, what does the Panama Canal have to do with quantum computing? Well, uh, suppose you've sunk uh, billions and billions of dollars into building a canal, right? If you've built 50% of the canal, is it useful? Can you use it for anything? Well, no, you've just dug half a hole. And so it's the same problem with quantum computing, right? We understand that there's some threshold at which point quantum computers are going to become useful for industrial applications. If you built 50% of a quantum computer, you don't have anything to show for it other than a neat toy, essentially. And so that's the Panama problem, right? You're going to have people throwing money and talent and lives into this trench until finally the thing is dug. And so this is why the independent startups are going to fail, is because they're going to run out of resources. They're banking on this idea that investors will continue to flock to them and will continue to put money into this hole. But until the hole is dug, there's no return on investment. It's a science project. There's no there's nothing that they can do to satisfy the investors until the task is done. And this is precisely why these major companies like Google, IBM are in a much better place, because they know the game. They know that until this thing gets built, it's just going to be a passion project. So if there are going to be any winners in quantum computing, at least in terms of industry, it's going, ironically enough, to be these companies that don't take quantum computing seriously, that don't have a dog in this race. So that's my feeling on that. The theorists are going to do well. Companies like Google, IBM are going to do extremely well. And there's already evidence of this, right? Like Google's Willow chip, or whatever it's called, that recent result where they were able to demonstrate uh, uh, quantum error suppression with their like distance 5 or distance 7 surface code. It's like, yeah, that came out of Google because they understand the value of um, uh, they understand the value of play here, and they understand that this is a technology that is not going to have a return on investment for many years. So, in short, the people who are going to do well in quantum computer science are the people who are having fun with it. And if you're having fun with it and you're doing good research, then great, you're going to do well. But if you're serious about it, then you're going to fail and you're going to fall flat on your face. Um, that's basically all there is to say about that. Um, all right, I suppose since I've spent all this time talking about quantum computer science and why I'm getting out of it, well, I haven't really explained why I'm getting out of it. I've just said that I'm dissatisfied with it essentially. What am I going to do now? What I want to start doing now, and this is fun actually. I had a friend call me on Christmas Day, a Jewish friend, which is like, okay, thanks for wishing me Merry Christmas, bud. But I got talking to him, and I realized from that conversation that what I'm really passionate about is improving internet safety, essentially. Because like so many young men today, a lot of us have really been damaged by the internet, and you look at the state of the internet today, and a lot of people will say the internet is trash. The internet is, there's just so much slop and slime and whatever. It's like, okay, well, what do we do about that? What do we do to make the ecosystem of the internet better? And so, what I have been working on for the last few months is essentially a content curation service. So the idea is that we're going to, take platforms like YouTube, and we're going to find the most edifying content on YouTube, that content that adheres to Catholic moral teachings, and we want to platform it on a separate website. So essentially creating a filtered YouTube experience. And I really like this idea. This is something that I'm super jazzed about. And so that's what I've been working on lately. And yeah, it's a real adventure. And unlike quantum computer science, it's something that I'm really excited to wake up in the morning and start working on. So, like, hey, I suppose the last thing that I want to say before I close out this video is, if you're an academic who's struggling, who is working on a project that you're not super crazy about, or if you just decide like, hey, what am I doing here? What am I doing with my life? I just want to say to that person in particular, God loves you. You're going to be okay. Stop worrying about the little stuff, because ironically, it everything that you're concerned about is the little stuff. You know, the things that matter are God, family, and your day-to-day actions. How are you growing in virtue? How are you cultivating virtue? So, if you've got all of those things, or even if you don't have them but you're working on them, it's like that's cause enough to be happy. And I'm saying this as somebody who's of the melancholic disposition, right? Of somebody who doesn't frequently find himself happy. at least not as the default position, you're going to be okay. So don't sweat the small stuff, because really, the doctorate, those pieces of paper, heck, your research papers, it's like, well, you're not going to take those with you when you die. Like, what do they matter in the grand scheme of things, really? Like, focus on the things that actually matter, and and try your best to have fun, because a lot of research is fun. It is an end unto itself, especially if you're in one of these more theoretic disciplines. So just have fun, enjoy life, make the most of the gifts that have been given to you, and just love your life. That's all that I have to say about that. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are.